The Infinity Cast.
So this is episode 2 of the coronavirus pandemic that's obviously ongoing at the moment. So far, there's 53 countries that have been deemed as having confirmed cases, 11,000 confirmed deaths worldwide, and 267,000 confirmed cases. There's over 185 areas and territories with cases of the same thing. It's picking up quite fast now. It is now the situation report 61, so 61 days in. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, it's there was a thing I was reading I think it was just yesterday. It took like a month to get to 100,000 cases or something, and it took like 12 days to get to 200,000. And it's just that kind of it is just stacked up, and it's gonna keep increasing in terms of the speed of transmission if people are still going out, which it seems that they are. But then this could actually be people who were already not showing symptoms. They weren't symptomatic 2 weeks ago, and now the lockdowns come into effect. It should hopefully start to slow down, because obviously once you've gone through the 2 weeks of showing no symptoms, then obviously you're going to have the symptoms. Now they can confirm, oh yeah, this person's got it, unless they've already been out and been tested, and then whilst they're not symptomatic and they've confirmed that they've got it.
I mean, like you just said, obviously the speed of transmission's been crazy, and over the last 24 hours we've had more than 1,000 more cases straight away. Yesterday we reported 10,000 deaths roughly. Today we're looking at 11,000. So obviously, in 24 hours, 1,000 deaths. Now that's a massive amount. I think pretty much every sort of governing body is working on something. I just feel like the UK, they might have been. I mean, I know they're thinking of separating London from the rest of the rest of the country, just so that it gives it time to delay the spread and transmission. But I really don't think it's going to make much of a difference now. I think we've acted a little bit too late. The school closures have come a little bit later on as well than I would like to have hoped. What are your thoughts on how the UK can sort of defend itself at this stage now?
By sticking to the the regulations and like the advice that the government's given now, to just everyone stay in lockdown 12 weeks. Don't go out unless you really need to. That's really the only thing that can be done at the moment, because it's already here. It's sort of like it's no longer a case of prevention of the disease getting into the country. It's already here now, so we've got to make the best of what we can whilst we can. Exactly.
I mean, to be honest, right, looking at the whole lockdown situation where they were closing pubs and bars and sort of restaurants yesterday, I'm sure you've probably seen some of the videos where the places are supposed to be closed, but there's still people getting together, having social gatherings. Even though we've been told and warned about social distancing, it's still going on. And people have just been ignorant to the fact that it's not a common flu. It is a killer virus that we can't see.
Well, it's one of those things. Like, the Prime Minister actually addressed this. He said, look, a lot of people are gonna think that okay, I'll go out tonight because it's the last night. Like, don't. Like, even he said that, don't. Because you're not invincible. Like, you might think you are, but you're just not. Like this, when it comes to viruses and when it comes to any type of illness, illnesses take no prisoners.
Exactly. And it knows no difference either. This virus is obviously it's a killer virus. It doesn't know the difference between someone who's from one part of the world to somebody else from another. You know what I mean? It doesn't hold any prejudice in any sense. I'm just looking at the cases in Italy, and it says they've got 47,000 cases. What's the population of Italy roughly? Let me have a look at the population of Italy, man, because that's looking like that's kind of alarming. That, to be honest with you, looking at that number, I'll have a look at it now. Population of Italy.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this. So it says 60 million is the population so far. that's the entire population of Italy at its height in 2020. And they've sort of got like a little graphic here, and I will attach this graphic to like the video in the bio, just like I've done the other ones. But it sort of shows all the way from the 1950s how there's been a steady incline in people moving to Italy and coming over. We then sort of had a small dip in around the year 2000. Just after the millennium, we had another spike, and then I think they've sort of predicted a downward curve for the future. Obviously, with what's going on at the moment as well with the pandemic, but it's sort of going down, and it literally ends at 39 million people. So I mean, it's got, by the year 2100, so in the next 100 years or so, we're looking at 39 million people being the population in Italy from 60 million today. Now, obviously, given that they are going through this massive pandemic, do you think that their defense strategy will look at these numbers and think, we can never let it get there?
I mean, it's just it's almost like it's too late to worry about what the future population might be now. In terms of like anyone contracting it, it's more a matter of maintaining the population that you've already got, saving as many lives as possible, and then obviously, like we said yesterday, about having that contingency that if anything ever happens like this again, you've got to be able to deal with it as quickly as possible. Yeah,
exactly. Acting with speed is obviously going to be in everyone's sort of number one priority at the moment. I've just had a look at some information on here, and it says that the World Health Organization Health Alert brings COVID-19 facts to billions via WhatsApp. So pretty much, I think I personally think it's. Oh no, actually, I can give you an exact figure. It's got the potential to reach 2 billion people, and enable them to get live, quick time information on COVID-19. And pretty much everything that we're going through in this series, it'll be available for people over WhatsApp. Do you think that will probably make people behave in different manners, behave in a different way as to how they behave now?
I think so. I mean, obviously with everyone supposed to be in lockdown, there's the amount of activities that you can really undergo within your own house are fairly limited. Obviously, a lot of people nowadays do stick to going on the phones and stuff. So a lot of people have WhatsApp. It's fair to say that around 2 billion that you said?
2 billion people the potential to reach.
It's fair to say that 2 billion people worldwide at least have a mobile phone, and
of course, in this day and age,
So it's possibly even fair to say that 2 billion people use WhatsApp as well. So if that's at least 2 billion people that are receiving that advice, what's the word I'm looking for? Receiving the fact, obviously seeing the facts, taking heed, to the advice that they've been given. That's 2 billion people that are less likely to become a statistic.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it's only the people that are really taking it into consideration, taking their health, and those around them as well. I think it's really important that this message goes out to people that they really they are being quite ignorant in the sense that they have families, they have loved ones, but yet they're putting themselves at risk of being a potential carrier of this virus. And then they go into area, they're then going home to the families, to the kids. Some people are going to their grandkids. Think about the other person, and how don't just think about yourself in a sense. The whole selfish sort of thing. Just a little bit more on this then. It basically, I'm going to attach a link to the video, and it basically says if you have any questions on COVID-19, the coronavirus, we have all the answers. Literally under the graphic, there's a little box that says start the conversation. So people can go on there, click that, and then literally just text hi to the WhatsApp number, and you'll get all these facts and figures on how to stay, and even some information on how to stay clean, how to stay healthy, and how to look after those that are around you. I mean, just looking at the quick, fast development of what's been going on. I mean, you've probably been keeping up to date with it a little bit more than I have. But what are some of the more recent updates today then in the news? What's the news telling us?
Obviously, the news is covering everything that was imposed yesterday and advised by the government. So obviously with the cafes, the pubs, the bars, restaurants, nightclubs, cinemas, theatres, leisure, leisure facilities like gyms, all of that, all of those businesses and areas have been told to close. Restaurants can still deliver food. It's just that they can't house any customers, obviously due to the close proximity and obviously the nature of the coronavirus itself, minimizing the risk of transmitting the disease further. And then it's just what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. I've got just something to say after that, but I'll pick it up after. Go on.
Other than that, it's just repeats of what the Prime Minister has said, what Rishi has also said, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, about how the funding is going to take place, how the government's going to be able to keep people afloat within the next 3 months and possibly even 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I wanted to pick up on was the whole home working situation. I've literally been out there today, and obviously during my work hours, I've had a chat with people regarding like the home working sort of aspect, and a lot of people are coming up with their own businesses in a sense. So I think that this working from home thing is not only allowing people to earn a living through their own jobs, but it's also creating this space where a lot of new businesses will thrive on this time. Do you know what I mean? Like given 2 or 3 extra hours a day to starting a new business, I feel like a lot of creativity will come out of it. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, it'd be great. Obviously with the amount of time that people are going to be spending at home, there's a lot of time to think. Obviously let the creative side get going. Who knows what kind of idea that someone might come out with that might be beneficial to in a time like this.
Exactly.
It could be anything. As with any idea, there's never really a bad idea, is there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking at the what the Chancellor said then as well, because obviously he spoke about the Chancellor just a little bit ago. So we've got a report saying that £1,000 will be added to the universal credit payments up until 2021. So obviously, in terms of giving the people more to spend, more to sort of to save, and obviously more to stay afloat, I feel like this is going to help the economy massively, because people are going to go out and spend that money and put it back into the economy. So it's not as if they're giving free money away in a sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, it's going to be the essential businesses and the essential services. That's what I was looking for. That are going to be receiving this money by obviously customers. Let's say when it comes to healthcare, buying medicine and stuff. When it comes to people buying the just food or hygiene, any kind of supplies that they need. It's not going to be spent on just general consumerism or
luxury
buying
items.
things for the sake of it. Luxuries, things that aren't necessary. It's going to be this money is going to be given to people out of necessity, and it's going to be spent upon necessity as well. So
I mean, looking at some of the firms that are sort of going redundant, then we've got quite a list actually of employers that will be going redundant. However, obviously, as we picked up yesterday, and I just want to reiterate again how important it is that supermarkets are now offering temporary positions for the next sort of 9 to 12 weeks, as well, allowing people to actually come and earn a wage, and the sort of what the interview process is now it's just brief. A lot easier. Yeah, very brief. It's just a lot easier. The word I was looking for was like simple, but it's straightforward. There's nothing that is that can scare someone away from any of these interviews now. I feel like a lot of the entry requirements for these roles are pretty much just to be able to speak, good English. You know what I mean? And obviously, a lot of the population can do that. Do you think that obviously through this time, a lot more people will join the workforce, or a lot more people will just decide to take the self-isolation route and stay at home?
I'd say it depends on like the person, each person on an individual basis.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tough one really, because like there'll be people who are really concerned about the safety. Say if they've got dependents, they don't want to risk, whether they're elderly or whether they're very young. They don't want to risk their health, those people's health by going out to work, potentially exposing themselves to the coronavirus and then bringing it back. But then at the same time, it can also work to a lot of people's benefit, because, like you said, the interview process is going to be a lot simpler. Anyone who's got, say anxiety, for example, it's going to give them a little bit of a confidence boost, because the interview process is easier, for them. It gives them a chance to get, a job. They'll be out there working. They'll be dealing with people, and especially in like, the time that we're in right now, with the severity of the situation. If those people can make it through this, then when this all clears up, and they should have that, that confidence still remaining, that I was there when this happened. I did, I contributed.
Exactly.
And then when they, when they go to pursue like any other forms of employment, that can transfer over, and it should make the rest of their career a lot simpler to work through.
Looking at the Corona Fund that we were talking about yesterday, I've not actually been able to find any figures on how much has been donated to these guys, or what sort of efforts they're trying to invest in. But I feel like it can only be a positive thing if people start investing. Like I said yesterday, even if they take a little bit of stuff down to the local food bank, we've seen a lot of sort of small to medium sized businesses pitch in and make their effort as well. Do you think it's more of a case of everybody just pitching in and making an effort, such as like the war effort that used to go on during the war times, or do you think it's more of a case of where of us just minding our own business and carrying on with our daily lives? Because that's quite a selfish way to look at things.
No, I think it is. It's reminiscent of the war effort. Obviously, being like the few differences, such as obviously the disease is it makes it a lot more difficult to maintain the rest of the industries that were in play at the time of the war effort. It wasn't just the essential things that were going. There was other general things that other normal businesses that were still taking in employees. Obviously now with the redundancies and with a lot of closures of many businesses, like the ones that the Prime Minister mentioned, anywhere with a social interaction, they're closing. So I think when it comes to the essential services that need to be provided, it's like that's where the war effort is, especially for the sake of like people's communities, their countries, and then also just against the coronavirus. I mean, that's essentially what this war is against.
Absolutely. I'm just having a look at some of the figures, the characteristics of COVID-19 cases and deaths, and pretty much I'm looking at looking at the ratio in terms of deaths and so on, and I can see here, right, that it looks like there's more deaths that have occurred in male in the male population than there is in the female population, and I don't know why this is. Do you reckon that there's more underlying health conditions with men? I mean, because they did a little they did a small survey on some of the Chinese people in Wuhan that obviously were affected and obviously have died from it, and it said the report said that a lot of them were over 65 and they were smokers, and due to that they had bad lungs anyway to start off with. The coronavirus wasn't much of a hit on them. It literally just finished them off. What are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't say that it's underlying health issues that are just lying men. which is why like more men have died. I'd say obviously it does have an effect on on both men and women, underlying health conditions. Obviously, we know that they're more vulnerable to the coronavirus.
Yeah.
I'd say it's more a case of perhaps the men are in like a more sort of exposed line of work.
Yeah.
To the coronavirus, in terms of the way that it's spread now, be that by whatever means that the person is working in. It's just if those men have come into contact with more people who have the coronavirus or have ended up transmitting it to more people, then obviously more men would contract the disease, more men would die from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at some figures now as well, some stats, and it pretty much shows that when the cases occur in anybody that's in the age group 50 to 59, that's when the deaths start to occur. So you've got a small number of deaths at 50 to 59. The number then grows from 60 to 69. It grows quite a lot. It actually doubles or possibly even triples from 70 to 79 years old. And then from 80 plus, it literally just doubles again. So it's almost 50% of the deaths so far are all in people that are over the age of 80.
Right. Obviously, like when when it comes to the elderly, the immune system is a lot weaker. It's the same with infants. The immune system hasn't really developed, so it's kind of strange to hear that no one below the age of 50 has died.
I mean, that's weird. I'm not sure if it's actually correct because I've just had a look at it, and then I'm sure I've seen in the news, in BBC News and around Sky News as well, that people have died from it. But let's have a look at this then, see if you can find this. It literally just doesn't tell you. It just says local transmission. So how the viral infection spreaded to them, and the total number of deaths. I mean, China's got 3,261, but obviously, as we saw with Italy, it's over 40,000 cases. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
China has more confirmed cases, but the death ratio is higher in Italy. I'm not sure what the UK and the US can sort of do to keep it at bay for much longer, to be honest with you. I really think that that cancelling flights inbound and outbound and pretty much locking down counties and states will really help to defend people from it. But as far as that goes, I mean, that's only going to be able to hold up for a certain amount of time as well. For example, I heard that when the lockdown does occur in the UK, I've heard from a few sources that basically what it means is you're not allowed to leave county lines, so you can't cross county lines basically. So if we were in Lancashire, for example, we wouldn't be able to go to Yorkshire, for example. We wouldn't be able to cross that county line. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd say it's something that I was thinking of in terms of how the lockdown could be implemented.
Yeah.
In terms, I was thinking more on the basis of constituencies.
Yeah.
There's over 600 constituencies. Obviously, one constituency for each seat in Parliament. So it would end up being a case of you don't leave that constituency.
Yeah.
To hold it any likelihood of contracting the disease or passing the disease on within a smaller area.
Yeah.
But if it's within county lines, obviously people do have a bit of leeway then, because it's unlikely that you'd have work outside of your county rather than outside of your city. There's plenty of people that live in say Bradford but work in that go to work in Leeds, or people that live in Leeds and work in Bradford. So within those county lines, obviously, because it's both within Yorkshire, it's much easier.
Exactly.
It allows things to run more smoothly. It is better than my idea, actually. I'll give it that one. it's why they're in the job and I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of the government payout, then what they've promised to employees, that are going redundant or employees that are suffering, obviously they're not able to get to work, and the 14 days of self-isolation. If someone has to stay at home longer than that due to a lockdown, how do you think the government's going to pay them out? Will it be looking at paperwork and looking at what's been submitted, or will it just be a case of batch payments, like this sector gets this much, allocate this much to this sector, and will it go that way?
Right. In regards to the sectors, I think they'll allocate the amounts that are necessary. That the government will have specific teams to decide how much each sector needs based on the priority that sector holds with the coronavirus. When it comes to individual people, I reckon it's going to be to do with the paperwork that they fill in when they contact HMRC. They notify them of their situation. They get paid the correct 80% of their wage that they would normally receive. But the issue is it's not about whether or not the government is able to pay the people. It's about whether or not the government is able to pay these people on time and not get backlogged.
That's it, exactly. Because once it gets into a backlog stage, it's gonna take a while for them to get out of the work their way out of that.
Yeah, and in that time, things could get worse if people, if people can't if people can't stay afloat because payments haven't been made yet for whatever kinds of delays. The worst case scenario, it could result in the person's death not by the coronavirus but by starvation.
Exactly. I mean, I'm just looking at some more information that I've just pulled up online, and it says that the NHS has struck a deal with private hospitals to acquire thousands of extra beds, ventilators, and medical staff to fight the coronavirus outbreak. So an extra 8,000 hospital beds across England, nearly 1,200 ventilators, and almost 20,000 fully qualified staff will be available from next week. Now, obviously, this is a gigantic effort from the NHS as well. Do you think that people really should be looking towards them for looking to support the NHS in a sense, like we talked about yesterday with, a lot of these private hotels that have, a number of rooms and a number of extra beds that are available. Do you think that the government should sort of provide some backing to those firms to allow them for a prolonged period of time to be able to give the capability of this many extra beds to the people that need it most?
I think so. In terms of the experience and the expertise, is invaluable on the parts of even the private health firms. If we go back to that the example that you gave of the deal that's been struck with the NHS, it's in all these private companies' best interests as well to help the state-run if their patients aren't looked after and they don't receive the right medication and they suffer as a result of the coronavirus, these private health firms aren't going to have any patients left either.
Exactly.
So it'll directly affect any private firms negatively, adversely, if they don't step in and help the state-run organisations to do their parts.
Exactly. I think like just what you said, but it will only promote these businesses if they decide to dig in and pull their sleeves up and actually make an effort. They're not losing anything. Like they say, any promotion is free promotion. It would only benefit them in the long run, I think. I'm also looking at some more info here that talks about several food retailers that are drastically cutting the range of products they sell. So, for example, they're telling the manufacturers to stop making some products to focus on those which is their greatest demand. So, for example, one retailer which makes 60 kinds of sausages will only produce a fraction of those just to be able to meet, the demand that people are after. For example, like we picked up on yesterday, the whole branding situation, that's completely gone out the window. And Morrison's, I've got some data here, Morrison's has actually reduced its bakery lines from 17 to just 7. And that's over the last few days. Online deliveries, in terms of how they're holding up. You've got Ocado, which has suspended its website, after struggling with the number of bookings. So some businesses can't even keep up with the flow of things. They can't keep up with the amount of orders that they're having to process.
Yeah.
Do you think that they should be looking to recruit more people now into sort of like the online retailing, the online retailing sector, if you will, just so that they've got enough capability to keep their businesses afloat?
I think so. I think any business that's going to be delivering essentials to people should definitely try to recruit as many people as possible, because there's many more people out there that are relying on that kind of a service if they're unable to go out and get the supplies that they need.
Absolutely. It's getting to the stage where I'm not even sure what's happening, but I mean I'm looking at this information straight off the BBC homepage. I mean, I will link all of this information that we're looking at for you guys. So if you want to go ahead and click in the links in the bio, you'll be able to find all the information we're talking about here. But I mean, do you think that a lot of people will be looking to look into this situation to try and use it to make money instead of helping people? Because I'm looking at this article here where it says there's a man in court over fake COVID-19 treatment kits. So basically, they're faulty kits that he's selling that don't really treat anything. It literally just takes blood out of you, and that's about it. I can actually name the guy, but I don't want to name him, obviously, for his own public safety on here. But it says that the man was arrested in a post office near his home where he was trying to send something off in a package. Basically, he's trying to send a fake coronavirus testing kit. It allegedly contained harmful chemicals which people were being told to use to rinse their mouths with. Now look at the severity of this, and can you imagine if a lot more people started doing stuff like this?
I mean, it's something that is foreseeable. There are some people out there that are always looking to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
And they'll take advantage of any situation, for the sake of making, just even a little bit more money than what they've got. Obviously taking advantage of the people panicking, looking for a way to protect themselves, and you could sell something faulty, out of sheer deception, for your own means. It's something that really is just deplorable.
Exactly. I mean, in terms of how we can sort of, deter people from, these sort of actions, do you think a more like a heavier social presence or even a physical presence in the streets will help this? I mean, I know, like I said the other day, we've only got a limited amount of police officers out on the streets. Given that they get more funding and more backing, how fast do you think that they'll be able to, put more numbers out there on the streets and protect the people that need, actual protection from people like this?
That again depends, obviously, in terms of the the numbers of officers that are recruited into the force. Obviously, depending on which specialization they go into. Obviously, any police officer that encounters that kind of any kind of crime is going to act upon it. But in terms of departments that are specialized, for very specific things. I'd say the police is always going to be able to deal with it. I wouldn't say that in this crisis that is currently going on, that any of the police would be backlogged or unable to address any criminal activity. It's just a case of, as long as people remain vigilant and report it, just as this was done. Obviously this person was arrested in the post office trying to send off this package. But what I think is, rather than the presence being there physically, I think it should the presence would be more successful as a deterrent if it was the prison sentence. The prison sentence itself, the severity of that, if it's in sometimes in court, what happens is the judge will give a much more severe sentence, a much longer sentence for a crime that isn't necessarily serious enough to warrant that kind of a sentence, but it's to serve as an example. This tends to happen during riots, So, normally for the kind of behavior that occurs during a riot, wouldn't get 10 years. But then because it was a riot and, someone took advantage of the situation for their own personal gain, they might end up getting 10 years at the discretion of the judge's decision. And it deters other people then, because now that precedent has been made that, this crime was committed, during the riot. He got 10 years for it. Let's not do that because this crime isn't worth getting 10 years in prison over. That, then obviously, people aren't going to be so inclined as to deceive people in the way that this person has.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the recruitment requirements that the police and other, governing bodies have, do you reckon that they could be relaxed to allow a steadier flow of new officers out on the streets? For example, your PCSOs. Do you think their recruitment requirements should be relaxed a little bit to allow them to be able to get out onto the streets? Not in terms of the training aspect, but in terms of sort of like a fast track, or or anything like that. I mean, obviously you'll know more about the requirements of that sort of thing, but just break it down for us. Do you think it can be relaxed in any way?
I don't think it can, because there's a lot that the police need to know. It's not just about getting the police out there on the street to be a presence.
Yeah.
You can't really fast track those. With the new system that's in place now for police officers, it's to get a degree. There is a specific degree to be a police officer now. So that's a 3-year degree. It's not just the 10 weeks, 11 weeks that it used to be at the police academy.
Yeah.
So now it's to really make sure that the members of the police know everything that they need to know. It'd be impossible to fast track it now. The only thing that would be doable is if they cancelled this scheme that they've got now and then went back to the original one. But there's a reason why they'd opted for this scheme rather than keeping the old one that they had in place. It's to ensure that the police know what they need to know. They're fully trained. There'll be no doubt on that day, on the day of graduation, that this person isn't a capable officer. And they're going to be able to do their job in the best way. Now, it's not just this person's completed the training. It's this person has spent years in preparation for this. They're essentially an expert now. It's not something that you've done over a few months. This is years we're talking about. This person is now like the real deal. It's gonna end up producing the best police officers, I feel.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because obviously they'll be a little bit more weathered by the time they actually get to the street. In that sense, I agree with what you've just said. Just looking at some of the information then, because I mean, I'm looking at some of the information for these businesses that work in the food sector. So, for example, your regular takeaways, the restaurants that are operating on a daily basis. Obviously, they're looking at losing a lot of money through obviously this coronavirus pandemic. But do you think that they can adapt their strategy to a more to an online strategy and promote themselves in a different way and try and obviously gain a loss of earnings that they've lost due to it? What I'm trying to say is, do you think that do you think that they'll be able to recoup any losses made, or will it just be a situation of where whatever loss is made, it's made, and just look on to move to the future now?
I'd say that obviously with the government granting certain loan, business loans to help the businesses keep afloat. I think they will be based on the average income that the business receives. Obviously, because if it was receiving less, it wouldn't necessarily stay afloat. But as the government also said, that the takeaways, as you gave as an example, would still be able to make deliveries. They're just not going to be able to house any of the customers in store. So if they perhaps direct their focus towards catering via delivery,
Yeah.
for their customers, then that way it ensures that they'll still get, they'll still keep their business running from
Yeah.
a practical sense, rather than just having to shut down completely and say, look,
Yeah.
we can't serve our customers now. There's
Yeah.
still something that they're able to do.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
and with it being food as well, with it being food, it's something that is necessary. People are always going to need it.
yeah, exactly.
So the business will still keep coming in. It might not obviously be the same as what it was before, but people
Yeah.
will still be calling. All these delivery services like
Yeah.
Deliveroo and Just Eat. They're
Yeah.
going to be having a lot of people calling now, I'd reckon.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of looking at some of the bigger names in the UK, then I've got two examples here for you. So basically, Greg's, Greg's UK, those guys, what they've decided to do is shut down most of the sitting section in their little outlets. So
Yeah.
there's no more seating available. They've literally just cordoned the whole area off, and they've just put a sign out saying, you can come and buy it from the counter. We'll serve you, we'll serve you food, graciously or whatever else. And then you've got McDonald's, obviously, that, have a drive-through business that probably earns them more money than people sitting in the actual restaurant. Now,
Yeah.
McDonald's have also, released a statement saying that from this week onwards, they will only be, providing a drive-through service. They won't be providing a sit-in service where you can obviously go and eat your food at the outlet.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that they're likely to see a surge in customers once the whole situation has blown over? Do you think people will go back to the normal habits, or they'll stick to the adaptive measures that they've been told to stick to now?
I think it would be wise to stick to some of the measures that they've
Yeah.
adopted.
Yeah.
I.e., not being so excessive with
Yeah.
some of the products that they're buying. To also be considerate of others. Obviously, with the limitation on the stock that's
Yeah.
been it's essentially been like forced upon people because of how the initial panic buying took place.
Yeah.
But in terms of the some of the limitations in terms of the isolation, the lockdown and everything like that. Like obviously after this situation is over, people
Yeah.
will start to go back to their old habits, going out, the harmless things, just the day-to-day activities that they used to engage in. Obviously, people will be trying to go back to work,
Yeah.
sort of settling back into a normal lifestyle that they were used to, but with a fresh memory of what's happened, and necessary precautions that'll take place. Like
Yeah.
hygiene, for example. You won't really see people going to the bathroom in a public building and then not washing their hands, as you saw before
Yeah.
the coronavirus broke out.
I mean, it just is a case of looking at how their actions can be how their actions can have effects on the people around them. I think I'm just looking at some information here that says 4,500 retired healthcare workers sign up to battle coronavirus. So literally, the government's attempt to get in retired healthcare workers back into the workforce again. 4,500 of them roughly have signed up again to go into the health sector. What weight do you put on that? I mean, do you think that they've, obviously they've made the right decision from our point of view and their own? How long do you think they'll be looking at until they can finally hang up the gloves as it is again? I mean, do you think there's going to be an end to this by the end of the year, or do you think it's going to carry on into the new year as well?
I'm really not sure at this point. I mean, if we just look at the graphs that we have, the statistics,
Yeah.
the numbers are just climbing upwards. It's not a steady
Exactly.
incline. It's like the advances that were made in technology. It was a slow progression, and then suddenly by the turn of the millennium, it just shot up. And
Yeah.
the coronavirus has pretty much done a similar thing.
Yeah.
But with some of the people, like say the medical staff that have come out of retirement, they've signed up of their own volition. it's sort of a case of, once you're a doctor, you're always a doctor.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
it's that sort of thing. Like, even if you hang up the gloves,
Yeah,
you still have that knowledge, and if the need arose, you'd use that knowledge and that experience, the expertise that you've acquired over those years to help
exactly.
save someone's life, regardless of whether you're being paid for it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's just like answering the call out of duty rather than
Um,
just, oh, it's my job, I've got
yeah.
to come to work today.
Yeah.
It's now, it's now more than just ourselves, and obviously
Yeah.
the retirees that have come out of retirement specifically for this
Yeah.
have made that decision. They know that, and that's why they've risen to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if you've been able to see some of the graphics on this article, but what I'm looking at is pretty much an article of the Australian people, right? Everybody knows the Australian people are a bit crazy sometimes. Literally in Australia, there's been a beach that's been closed after hundreds of people gathered in defiance of the social distancing rules. There's literally people littered all over this beach. They're in the water. They're on the beach having to me what looks like a good time. What can you say about that? I mean, there's really nothing you can tell these people.
I just don't understand why they didn't listen to the advice.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like we were saying earlier about the last day of freedom. You go out and do whatever you want, but you're not
Yeah.
invincible. Like, the risk that you've posed now to everybody else when they go
Yeah.
back home, because it's unlikely that they all live on that beach.
Exactly.
They've all got homes to go back to. They all
Yeah.
have, it's likely that they've all got neighbours.
Yeah.
And if any one of them on the beach had the coronavirus, they will
Yeah.
have passed it on to others.
Exactly.
You don't know, and who's to say that it's only one person that had the coronavirus? Hopefully
Exactly.
no one there had it,
Yeah.
so there's no consequence. But out of principle, what if say 10 people or 100 people on that beach had the coronavirus? How many people would be
Exactly.
infected, and how
Exactly.
many people would be infected when these people go back to their homes?
Exactly. Yeah.
It makes the entire situation worse, and it's like what
It
we were
does.
saying about being selfish and doing it for
Yeah.
their own selfish gain.
Yeah.
Why would you risk the lives of so many people just for a few hours of enjoyment?
Exactly. I mean, looking at a post from I think she's a doctor in Australia, in what is it, Sydney, New South Wales. So yeah, I guess she's a doctor because it's got like doc and then her name on it. But it says I'm going to link this tweet to this. I'm going to link the page for this tweet to the video as well, so people can go on and have a look at what these crazy people are doing. But it literally says, I can't say anything as a GP working in Bondi, which I think is a place. And living in this area with my children, I am appalled at the lack of disregard by many for how serious this all is. And literally, there's not it's not social distancing at all. It's people just, defying the rules that have been given to them. I'm not sure if it's just an Aussie thing, but I don't think it is. Literally, and another fella's put it as well. Obviously, I won't say his name for personal issues, but I will link the tweet where the page is. You can go and have a look at it yourself. And literally, man, it just looks like there's hundreds of people on this beach, and pretty much, the bluntest way to put it is, I think they're taking the piss. There's no way to put it. There's literally people in hospital, having near-death experiences, and these guys are really not taking it serious. I hope the councils in Sydney can, take some action on this, because it really doesn't make it any safer for anybody else. I just don't know how they can get away with something like this. Where's the police in this case?
Well, there's actually a case of the UK police arresting someone in breach of coronavirus quarantine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was on the Isle of Man, and the man's actually facing a possible fine of £10,000 or 3 months in prison.
Yeah.
For his breach of quarantine.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's like the only way to really address, that kind of defiance is, either with a hefty fine or with a prison sentence.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's really going to deter people.
I
if they
really
don't
think,
care about the health, they'll care about
yeah,
the freedom.
yeah, exactly. And I personally think, right, the majority of the pictures that I can see on here, I'm not saying it was all white people. I'm just saying that the majority of people in this, in these pictures, do look white. You know, the simplest way to put it. Maybe that's the reason why there was no policing action involved. You know what I mean. Sometimes the rules are relaxed depending on your different, on your ethnicity, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to put it down to that. I hope it wasn't that, but I hope they can actually start doing something to, counteract people from doing shit like that. Looking at another article then, basically, on the coronavirus, like I was on about the surgeon job, basically the surgeon recruitment from all these big supermarket giants in the UK.
Yeah.
Somebody's given a statement and said, I applied for a job and literally got it 3 hours later. I mean, like, that's somewhat wicked, that is, mate. Congratulations, mate. But yeah, I mean, literally, a university student said that she was given a job only 3 hours after applying for a role at a local Tesco store. That is mad. Check this out. I applied for a role at Tesco at 7 p.m. and they called me in at 10 p.m. to work tomorrow. That is mad. The application process was really quick, right? Just personal details, education, and past experience, and that was it.
It's all right. I mean, if only every job was that fast, to apply and obviously get the job.
Yeah. I mean, it says here that the UK's biggest grocer, which is Tesco's, is recruiting 20,000 temporary workers for the next 12 weeks due to the demand created by panic buying. So literally, it's the point that we started off on, and it's the point that I think we'll end on. Obviously, getting people out there to go and help is the message that we need to send. But again, like you said, it's down to personal preference. It's also down to the vulnerability of these people, because you can't just, send 20,000 people out to the supermarkets and expect them not to, pick up any sort of illness or any symptoms of the coronavirus, and then send them home at the end of the day, which is where they're taking it to people that could be vulnerable. They might have underlying health conditions again. I don't know, man. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, this. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's a bit of a tough one to say, obviously, with the way the situation is. Obviously having many more people to help with the ease the burden that has been caused by panic buying is important. Obviously to maintain those stocks, to ensure that everyone has enough food, has enough of all the medicine, any supplies that they might need. But then at the same time, obviously there does there is a risk that is posed by putting themselves, in that position where everybody has been told to stay at home. Even anyone that is classed as the key worker, is essentially at risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're still out there, facing it. But some people might say, there's no risk there's no reward without risk.
Exactly.
But then it's just assessing for each individual. It's assessing that risk and determining whether it's worth partaking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm looking at some article here that says there's a task force that's just been set up to target coronavirus profiteers in a crackdown. But I don't understand this, because if you're not chasing the big giants like we've just discussed, if you're not chasing the big supermarket giants and stuff like that, they're profiting very heavily off the coronavirus. So why would it be a case of not follow them, but follow the sort of self-employed people that are looking to capitalize on the situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's because the big supermarket chains and everything like that, they're all regulated.
Yeah, and I think they're probably classed as essential as well.
Well, they are essential. I mean, the people with their own with their own businesses trying to capitalize on where they've just made a business to take advantage of the coronavirus. it's different then. Obviously, everyone shops at these supermarkets, Tesco, Asda,
Yeah.
Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Aldi, Lidl, all
Yeah.
of these places. So that's the first place these people are going to look to in order to buy the supplies that they need.
Yeah.
When it comes to some person who's just decided, oh well, the coronavirus and people are desperately panic buying, I'm going to start selling something.
Yeah.
Then it's a case of this person needs to be, it needs to be watched. And if they're found breaking the law, like the person that you mentioned earlier with the faulty coronavirus kits,
Yeah.
it needs to be apprehended and prevented from potentially causing serious harm, if not death, to the
Absolutely.
people that are buying his products.
Yeah. Exactly. I feel like, I really just think that people should not go out for unnecessary travel, unless it's absolutely urgent, such as like your urgent examples that could be, for example, pregnancy or life or death situations. Basically, I don't think people should go out unless they absolutely have absolutely have to go out, and that's just going to make it easier for people to not go out there and pass it on. But again, people will be people, and rules are supposedly meant to be broken. In this case, I don't think that should be the way to go, because obviously we're not invincible. Even as young people, we can still get the COVID-19 infection. Virus. We can still get the COVID-19 virus, and we're still at risk at the end of the day. I've seen a lot of videos that have been posted on Facebook where young people are saying, don't take any chances. They're hooked up to IVs and they're hooked up to drips and stuff like that, and they're basically telling everyone, don't put yourself at risk, don't go out, don't think it can't happen, because it can. We really just need to make it more heavily understood that you shouldn't go out unless you absolutely need to. For obviously key workers, that's different. For people applying for these jobs in the supermarkets, that's different. But I think it's just got to be a case of where people start to become responsible for their own actions. And if sanctions aren't put in place, like you said, we're not going to see a change in that.